You know, I always wondered what it would be like if a modern day version of The Breakfast Club were turned into Power Rangers. Power Rangers is directed by Dean Israelite, starring Dacre Montgomery, Naomi Scott, Ludi, RJ Cyler, Becky G, Elizabeth Banks, and Bryan Cranston. Before I get into this review, I just want to say there will not be any plot spoilers. This film is about 5 different troublesome teenagers who have to band together and become the Power Rangers to fight an adversary in Rita Repulsa, and they are done so under the guidance of Zordon, portrayed by Bryan Cranston, as well as a kind of wacky robot named Alpha 5, voiced by Bill Hader. As someone who was born in the late 1980s and grew up in the 1990s, Power Rangers was something that I watched every single day. I owned all of the action figures. I owned many of the episodes on VHS. I went and saw the Power Rangers movies in theaters. I loved the Power Rangers so much when I was a kid. I was very pleasantly surprised by how good this film is. I was also surprised at how they were able to take all of the core elements from the previous incarnation of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and instill it within this film with a lot of seriousness and sincerity, and it was believable for most of the time. And I also really like the young cast of actors in this film. I've said this before and I'll say it again, young actors can make or break a film, and I thought they were very, very good in this film. They had great chemistry on screen. They really were able to wholeheartedly portray their characters on film with a lot of depth. And I think a lot of it has to do with how sincere they approached the Power Rangers. They were not just using it as a kind of fun, over-the-top action film. They really wanted to make this as serious a film as they possibly could, and as serious a character piece as they possibly could, which surprised the heck out of me, because these films typically don't have a lot of character depth to them, and this one did. If you are familiar with director Dean Israelite, he had done a previous film about young teenage characters, and that was Project Almanac. You see that he's really able to mine the teenage world for a lot of good material. If there is one thematic element I've always been interested in film, it's this idea of youth culture, specifically teenage culture, because I think the teenage years of one's life are extremely interesting, extremely important, and have been portrayed on film extremely well over the decades. And in this film, he hits on a lot of those same thematic through lines. He hits on things like troubled, lost youth and not being accepted in the world, and they struggle to connect with the adults in their lives. It's a really good film that balances a lot of those thematic elements very, very well. Another thing that the film does extremely well is developing the relationships between the characters. It really spends about 2/3 of the film developing them as a team, developing them as individuals. There are really great character building scenes in this film. We really get to see a lot of personal things with the characters. Another thing I just want to point out in the film, it's not necessarily a positive or negative thing, is that Dean Israelite likes to shoot his films using a lot of handheld camera work. He did it in Project Almanac, he does it in this film, and perhaps he'll use it in his future work. But when you are utilizing handheld camera, things can be jarring from an aesthetic, because angles are changing all the time, and there may be some shaky cam use or things of that nature, and it can stick out, and it can take a while to adjust to that specific aesthetic. And as much as I actually really enjoyed the film, there are of course some issues with it. As much as I like the character building and things of that nature, and as I've said, the acting is overall very, very good from this young cast, there are a few moments where the acting is not the best, the dialogue isn't the best, the line delivery isn't great. Also, another negative aspect of the film, I have to say that I am disappointed with, is the Rita Repulsa character. When I watched all of the trailers leading up to this, and I saw Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa, I was really, really excited. And then I watched the movie, and she didn't quite mesh with the rest of the film. I mean that in the sense that everyone else, and even the film as in its entirety, is taking the material as serious as you possibly can, without being ridiculous, without being absurd, without being noticeably campy in any way. and you insert this Elizabeth Banks, Rita Repulsa character, and she is over the top. She is campy at times. I have to say, though, she is rather imposing and poses a great threat to these new young Rangers, but just the way she presents the character does not vibe with the rest of the film, and it really is jarring. And I will also say, when it comes to tonal shifts, the third act of the film, while it gave me such nostalgic emotion watching it, is a departure from the rest of the tone of the movie. The film takes a step back for me in that third act, despite how much I enjoyed it for its action spectacle. It really felt like I was watching a completely different film. So with all that being said, I'm going to give the film a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I overall very much enjoyed the film. I was pleasantly surprised by how good it was. It does have a few nagging problems with it, especially with the tonal shifts, as well as some of the typical tropes you see with these types of films. But if you are a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers fan from when you were a child and you have some type of nostalgia for it, I would definitely recommend checking it out. This has been my review of Power Rangers. If you like this video, please check out the other videos on my channel.